As Harry Kane saw his number come up on the hour mark, Gareth Southgate deciding his greatest goal scorer was no longer needed 1-0 down in a Euros final, he must have thought to himself, where did it all go wrong?
It's not Harry's game anymore.
We start Kane's journey on August 12th, 2023, the day the world thought he'd be on a flight to Munich. Kane was staying, and not just that. With current captain Hugo Lloris destined for a move to the MLS in January, Ange made Kane skipper. Best mate Sonny would be vice-captain, taking the ultimate Spurs bromance to new levels. The bumper deal for Kane did have consequences though, as the £47 million deal for Brennan Johnson was called off, as Daniel Levy scratched his head over FFP. With Kane confirmed to be staying, the question is, how exactly does Ange Postecoglou fit Kane into his system? Big Ange was hired to bring attacking football back to the club after years of boring defensive football. He's looking at you, Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho. With two inverted wing-backs who sometimes operate as number 10s, along with centre-mids who drift wide to support touchline-hugging wide forwards, Angeball screams out for a traditional box-playing number 9. That's not Kane's forte, unfortunately, having become the poster boy for what a modern-day deep-lying forward is. So Ange had to tweak things ever so slightly. With no need for an out-and-out playmaker, seeing as Kane will drop, both centre-mids take on a Mazzala role. This keeps their tendency to drift wide, but also encourages runs in behind Harry. Sonny will hold the width off the ball, still looking to cross when the big man's in the box, but when he's on the ball, he'll cut inside to link up with Harry to the usual devastating effect. The other side is similar, but offers a little bit more creativity. Kulusevski will cut inside onto his left foot, but off the ball he'll hug the touchline tighter than a duck's arse, with Pedro Porro roaming around him in support. Team instructions will still remain very much Angeball. Short passing, high tempo, a crazy press and a high line, as well as fast and flat low balls into the box. Extra player instructions to note are hold position on the defensive midfielder and dribble less for Kane because he turns like a truck. Over in Munich, not wanting a lesser striker, Fulham's João Paulinho was brought in a year early to bolster their midfield. Could the extra steal be enough for Tuchel to keep Bayern's league run intact? The season started off on fire for Big Ange and Harry, as 2 goals and a 3-0 win at Brentford was followed up by a 5-1 drubbing of Manchester United. Kane scored, but it was all about Angeball as Pedro Porro scored pick of the bunch. The Spurs fans were purring after just 2 games. If that's not worth a like and subscribe, I don't know what is. 2 more wins followed, including a show from the kids as Spurs beat Peterborough in the League Cup. The reward? Another visit of the Red Devils. Bayern had started well in the Bundesliga and had even won the Super Cup. Perhaps Kane really is just cursed. Back in London, September looked a bit tricky on paper as Ange had to prepare the squad for 3 games against the Big Six. Warming up, Spurs slapped Burnley and Sheffield to go top, just in time for the first North London derby of the season. Son scored a lovely finish to have Spurs 1-0 up all the way until injury time, before big Willy Saliba snatched a draw at the death. Kane had picked up a knock in the derby, so watch from the bench as Richarlison led Spurs to another win over United in the Cup. Sonny and Basuma scoring 2 worldies to win it. Could the League Cup once again be Spurs' trophy salvation 16 years later? Everton in the next round was a promising sign. There would be no 10-game undefeated streak for Ange this time, however, as Spurs tasted defeat at home to Liverpool next. The blame fell solely on Kane's shoulders, as he missed a late penalty. The bottle job saw Spurs drop to 3rd, made worse with news Sonny would be out for 2 months. Spursiness at its finest. Spurs bounced back with 3 wins from 3 in October. Kane made up for the penalty miss by banging 5 goals across the month, breaking Jimmy Greaves' all-time league record for the club, having beaten the all-time and Prem record in seasons prior.
Stepping in. Kane! 2-6-7 for Spurs.
See what you missed out on, mate. Spurs were back on top following the perfect month, with eyes now turning to that game against Chelsea to come in November. The cup came first though, and with Kane having the squirts after a dodgy kebab, Richie haunted Everton en route to an all-time shockingly bad penalty shootout win. Kane was back for the Chelsea game as he welcomed back the manager who made his career in Mauricio Pochettino. No red cards, no injuries, no penalties, no bloody controversy. Spurs dealt with Chelsea easily this time, winning 2-0. Kane had a stinker yet again in a big game. Perhaps he still had the runs.
Good one.
Wolves were eaten alive by Angeball next, before Unai Emery's team rocked up to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with no fear. A wild game saw Villa equalise late on for 3-3. Game of the season so far, no doubt. Spurs were still top by a point. Surely top 4 is the least we can do this season. In Munich, Paulinho had ousted fan favourite Leon Goretzka from centre midfield as Bayern sat 2 points clear. Leverkusen nowhere in sight. Back in the Prem, Kane was 2 goals behind the Norwegian cyborg in the goal tally, but they met next as Spurs travelled to Manchester. Kane rolled back the years with a run in behind to round Ederson for 1-0 early on. Núñez responded 2 minutes later with a cheeky chip. 1-1 it ended as Liverpool went back on top. Games galore in December meant Spurs' thin squad would be tested in a different way throughout the month. Son's return was welcome as he bagged 2 goals on his comeback as Spurs pounded the Hammers. 4th place Newcastle were narrowly defeated at home before Spurs suffered a slip-up. A Brennan Johnson-led Nottingham Forest routing Spurs 3-2 in a shocker to leave Daniel Levy red in the face. Another Kane penalty miss went unpunished as Spurs bounced back with a 2-0 quarter-final win over West Ham. The semi-final, a double-header against North London rivals Arsenal. Squeaky bum time indeed. Everton got swept aside before Spurs stumbled again though. Despite dominating the game, Brighton were clinical at the Amex. Not even goal of the month from Son could save sorry Spurs. Now 7 points behind Liverpool, Ange, Harry and co needed to refocus ahead of a tricky start to the year. Spurs would be losing Pape Sarr, Yves Bissouma and Son to international duty. Not ideal considering the semi-final against the Gooners. In their last game before departing, Angeball had Spurs cruise past Bournemouth 4-0. The year closed with Kane just 2 goals off Haaland, having seemingly adapted fully to Angeball. Spurs fans had more reason to cheer in the new year, as Chelsea and Arsenal paid the price for their low league position, with Mauricio Pochettino and Mikel Arteta getting the sack.
I feel embarrassed.
January was a season-defining month for Big Ange and Spurs, as the Kane contract meant outgoings were needed before any potential signings. Eric Dyer returned home to Sporting, Lloris crossed the pond, and most surprising of all were rumours that Richarlison was in talks for a cut-price move to West Ham. Ange tinkered with his depleted squad as Spurs survived Fulham in the FA Cup first. Timo Werner then arrived on loan just in time for the first leg of the League Cup semis. He wasn't needed though, as Spurs got one over on Arsenal and put 1 foot in the final with a 2-0 win. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg scoring a Ranger late to make Spurs favourites. Surely Spurs wouldn't bottle this. No rest for the wicked though, as Spurs were in Manchester 2 days later. United finally got one over on Tottenham as Garnacho downed the Lily Whites to dent their faint title hopes. New faces all around before the Arsenal rematch a week later. Spurs using funds from the freed up wages to sign Romanian star boy Radu Dragusin. Arsenal meanwhile hired the GOAT. Kane then found himself in more transfer talk, this time by Jurgen Klopp starting to give in at biggins. Ange was having none of it.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate.
Timo time saw Spurs claim a 3rd goal in the second leg, but they nearly Spursied it up by shipping 2 goals late. Ange badly needed the internationals back in the squad. City were Spurs' date in the final. Big Ange knew Kane would have to end his 6-game goal drought before then to have any chance of winning that trophy. January came to a close with 2 good wins for Spurs. Kane managing to break his duck against Brentford. Let's ignore the latest missed pen. Spurs were still second, but Liverpool were on for an Invincibles run. I'm really starting to believe Kane has some sort of curse now. First Leverkusen, now Liverpool. In Germany, no invincible Leverkusen meant Bayern were clear in first, but no Kane had the golden boot race looking like a kids' competition. No Kane also meant Bayern had come 3rd in their Champions League group. An almighty failure, but they were now favourites for the Europa League. All eyes were on the cup final in February. Kane desperate to lift his first trophy. Sonny's timely return had him firing as well, as he bagged 4 goals in the lead-up as Spurs downed Everton, Brighton and Wolves. Liverpool were drawn with Brentford too, meaning Spurs were just 4 points off. Title race, back on. Kane led Tottenham out at Wembley as captain, hoping he would finally show up when it mattered. To be blunt, he was fucking shit, as the two teams drew 0-0 after 90 minutes. Kane thought he had done it in extra time with a tap-in, but Timo Werner was controversially ruled out for offside. The fix was in, I'm telling you. As penalties loomed, Tottenham's hero was one of their own, just not Harry Kane, as 18-year-old Jamie Donnelly came off the bench to unleash a wonder strike to win the cup. Absolute scenes. Kane and Spurs could finally buy a trophy cabinet, but Kane knew more than a League Cup was needed to truly silence the noise. Just 3 days later, Liverpool came to London for an FA Cup tie as rumours swelled on Jurgen Klopp's departure at the end of the season. Potentially distracted, Liverpool didn't show up, as Spurs absolutely cooked en route to a 4-1 win. Big Ange had Spurs fans feeling fruity as the perfect month was completed. March started off as more of the same, as the Eagles were downed before Villa got put to the sword, even as Kane missed yet another penalty. Maddison was reaping the rewards of playing with England's number 9 as Gareth Southgate started taking a look. West Ham were up in the FA Cup quarter-finals. Spurs somehow overall favourites for the whole thing after shock results earlier in the competition. The Hammers got melted as Tottenham booked another semi-final against Bournemouth. Note the latest Kane pen bottle job, by the way. Harry downed Fulham at Craven Cottage next, before wrapping up another perfect month by finally scoring a pen as Tottenham defeated Luton. Spurs were flying, with even the press getting in on Angeball. Kane was level on goals with Haaland to add some extra spice ahead of Spurs' dreadful run of games to end the season. At least fans won't actively be rooting against Tottenham at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this time, right?
I'm sitting till July. I know I am, I'm sure I am. I'm sitting till July.
Spurs splattered at West Ham 0-0 though. But in the most unlikely of circumstances, Liverpool's invincible season was over, losing 3-2 at home to Sheffield United. Nottingham Forest were cut down in revenge next, as Spurs started their make-or-break run just a point behind Liverpool. A stuttering start saw the Magpies hold on for a draw, having scored within 90 seconds at St James's Park. Spurs back to 3 points off Liverpool. By hook or by crook, Spurs just about overcame Bournemouth in the FA Cup semis. Harry now had yet another Wembley final to hopefully fill that trophy cabinet up just a little bit more. Leon Bailey smashed 4 to send Villa through as Kane's obstacle in the final. The last North London derby of the season followed, as 6th place Arsenal visited the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They hoped to hammer the final nail into Spurs' title dreams, a complete reverse of how this fixture was in real life. Kane's 14 goals in this fixture is a record, one which he increased in this game, smashing a perfect hat-trick past the Gooners. He even missed a penalty to make sure the hat-trick was legit perfect.
Oh, he's done it again, that Harry Kane, that
Kane now had 30 goals in 33 games, sitting top of the charts. Liverpool were drawn with West Ham, meaning it was game on heading into the final month of the season. In our penultimate trip to Munich, Bayern had somehow slipped, as a Benjamin Sesko-led RB Leipzig topped the Bundesliga on goal difference, as Bayern struggled without a star number 9. As Spurs travelled to Stamford Bridge just days before a vital trip to Anfield, fate yet again turned this fixture on its head. Spursiness kicked in full force as Pedro Porro saw a late red card before Conor Gallagher won the game 3-2. Spurs now knew it was win or bust at Anfield if the title dream would stay alive. Liverpool wanted to wave Klopp goodbye with a title though, and as time ticked away after a Maddison equaliser from range, who else but Mohamed Salah to pop up with a winner to all but end Tottenham's title chase. More league disappointment for Harry Kane, unfortunately. But he couldn't sulk for long as Tottenham were just 3 games away from an FA Cup final. The last 3 league games then became a straight shootout between Harry and Haaland for the Golden Ball, with Kane's goal against Burnley making them even on 32. With City still chasing the Reds, they visited North London with all the pressure on them. It showed, as Vicario denied Haaland from the spot before Angeball saw Basuma score a cracker en route to a 2-1 win.
Blimey!
You're welcome, Liverpool. A City's defeat handed Klopp his picture book departure, Liverpool claiming the league title. With neither Kane or Haaland scoring in the game, they were still locked on 32 heading into the last league game. Who's your money on? After such a terrible year from the spot, it was perhaps fitting Kane would need to show his nerve to bang a penalty for goal number 33. Haaland had a stinker at home to West Ham, meaning Kane had done it, vanquishing last season's conqueror and finally proving that he could actually fit into a gung-ho attacking system. Haaland wasn't happy. Ange was delighted with the season overall, a third place finish getting Champions League football back to Tottenham. Even better was the Gooners missing out on Europe altogether, as ex-Spurs boss Nuno Santos somehow got Forest into the Conference League. Well done, Brennan. With the Prem in the rear view, all attention turned to Wembley and Villa for the FA Cup final. Unai Emery versus Ange Postecoglou guaranteed a high-scoring game. And after one of the longest highlights I've ever seen, Kane netted a belter to take the lead. A much shorter highlight saw Kane's big forehead grab a second, before best mate Sonny set him up to complete his hat-trick. Finally, a big performance in a big game from England's skipper. The trophy curse was officially broken. Kane could sleep well knowing his decision to stay at Tottenham was fully justified. As Spurs signed off from a wonderful season, Kane turned his attention towards leading out England and Germany. Speaking of the Germans, Bayern had clawed their way back to a title win after all, but suffered defeat to Inter in the Europa final. Young striker Matthias Tell missing a penalty. Would Kane have banged it? I'm not 100% confident saying he would, but hey, let's just say he would have, yeah? You missed out, Bayern. Could Kane take his 41 goal deep momentum into Euro 2024 and finally bring it home? Let's hope Gareth Southgate's been watching Angeball, yeah? England warmed up for the Euros with 2 solid wins. Southgate benefited from having a fully fit squad. Even favourites Harry Maguire and Calvin Phillips made it this time, although Phillips became a doubt after a 5-minute cameo against Bosnia. Confidence was sky high in the group as City's quartet had just won back-to-back Champions Leagues. Jude had won La Liga, and of course we saw what Kane had done with Angeball. Even Spurs teammate James Maddison had earned a call-up on his good form. They'll need to be firing from the get-go, as the Kane effect saw England get drawn into the group of death. The butterfly effect had actually seen a number of teams who failed in our timeline qualify here. You'll get to see who they are later on. Maddison had impressed in the warm-ups. Could he get a start against the Dutch with Phillips still recovering?
No.
As Southgate went with the Trent in midfield experiment with Foden once again stuck out wide. Things started badly as Cody Gakpo scored within the first minute. Here we go again. Captain Kane carried on his goal-scoring form though, as England snatched a 1-1 draw. Portugal smashed Ukraine 5-0 when we were up next. Hopefully Gareth had a trick or two up his sleeve. He won't. João Felix put the Portuguese 1-0 up before Kane played saviour once again from the spot. Felix then took advantage of piss-poor play at the back for an easy second before super sub Ollie Watkins earned a draw late on after great work from Ben Chilwell down the left. See what you can do with a backup left back, Gareth. The Dutch had beaten Ukraine, meaning it was all to play for in Group F on the final day. Kane settled the nerves early for the Three Lions before pubs across England were silenced as Ukraine scored their first goal of the tournament to equalise. Once again, Harry turned hero before a Southgate classic saw England park the bus for an unconvincing 2-1 win. Netherlands had held Portugal though, which meant England had finished top. I won't lie, I'm not quite sure how we've managed to do that. Finishing top meant England had drawn Bosnia and Herzegovina in the second round. Very favourable for the Three Lions. Elsewhere, the Republic of Ireland had beaten Northern Ireland 2-1 to clinch a third spot qualification. France had beaten Spain to first in their group, whilst Haaland's international tournament debut had Norway through to the knockouts as well. England finally roared against the Bosnians as they hit 5 goals. Saka scored a peach before Ivan Toney grabbed his first England goal with this cheeky Panenka. Wonder what the odds on that were? The quarters would see Kane renew hostilities with Erling Haaland once again, as the tournament said goodbye to a number of favourites. Host Germany fell to Spain, the Danes upset Croatia, Frankie de Jong confirmed a number of sleepless nights, missing a penalty against France, and Portugal fell to a 94th minute own goal. Drama. 2 early disallowed goals had Southgate clutching at his waistcoat until Phil Foden finally showed up with what proved to be the winner, as Southgate parked the bus once again to keep Haaland and Ødegaard quiet. Spain was shocked by Sweden 2-0, meaning England had more Scandinavian drama to come. Kyle Walker got suspended against Norway, meaning Trent was back to right back as Maddison came into the team at centre mid. Game of the tournament followed as Sweden rocked England to go 2-1 up. The game exploded in the 50th minute as Yusuf Arabi saw red following a crazy challenge in the box. Kane put to rest his semi-final penalty pain with a bang before Maddison grabbed a third to take the lead. Southgate's bus couldn't keep out wonder kid Rooney Bargy though, as he scored late on for a dramatic 3-3. Potentially serious injury to Saka meant the whip had to come from the wing-backs, and they delivered in injury time, as Ben Chilwell and Trent saw England win 5-3. But at what cost? Saka and Bellingham now faced a race in time to be fit for the final as the ominous French booked their spot with a battering of Italy. It was all on Kane to bring it home with those 2 injured. He went into the final joint top scorer, with the only man who could beat him being none other than Kylian Mbappe. Saka's twisted knee meant he had to settle for the bench in the final as James Maddison was stuck out wide. But Jude started in a massive risk from Gareth Southgate. The game imploded within 60 seconds though, as Malo Gusto tried to kill Foden with his first bloody tackle. The French down to 10, the pressure was now all on England. The French held on for an hour before a loss of concentration yet again saw Jude fouled in the box. Who else but Harry Kane to coolly slot home to see pints fly back in England? Southgate just couldn't resist though, could he? As England parked the bus yet again, it came as no surprise when Kolo Muani went unchallenged before firing past Pickford for 1-1. Bottle job secured. Extra time to come. With 2 minutes left, penalties loomed. So Southgate finally got frisky to get as many pen takers as he could on the pitch, with Kane even dropping to Cam to make room for Ivan Toney. The system change caught France cold though, as Jared Bowen bagged a second to leave Southgate pondering whether Kane would work at centre-back. It wasn't needed, as Bowen further cemented himself as an English hero by putting a wonder ball into Toney's path for 3-1. It had finally come home. The pain of the Euro 2020 final defeat was finally sent packing, as Harry lifted the Henri Delaney trophy for the first time in English history. Southgate would be waking up a Sir in the morning, no doubt, with Kane close behind as his penalty saw him finish with the golden boot on 6 goals. As he departed for a well-deserved break, he pondered his season after the decision to stay at Spurs last summer. Even the staunchest of critics could not deny him now. But there couldn't be any resting on laurels for England's captain. Big Ange and him had some unfinished business in the Premier League.